The Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame will be around Bound for Glory weekend, and hopefully, this whole COVID-19 coronavirus, whatever you want to call it, um, will probably be over by then. But there is one name we need to talk about, and one name alone, because it's the only inductee in this Hall of Fame for this year. The world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock. And I never thought this day would actually happen. It's a great thing to see happen. Obviously literally one of the baddest people on the planet, whether it's MMA, whether it's wrestling, whether it's wherever the hell he wants to be in. The guy is a machine. The guy is ruthless. The guy, even in his current age, has not slowed down at all, which is awesome. Yeah, I mean, the guy can really speaks for himself, but just go over his MMA career and his wrestling career respectfully, because it's both going to be on here regardless. For his MMA career for UFC, obviously in the Hall of Fame for UFC, in the Pioneer Wing in 2003. The Super Fight Championship, which at that time, MMA was basically a concept at that point. It wasn't what it is today. In fact, UFC, MMA, or UFC or MMA in general, was very deregulated, was looked at as the lowest form of entertainment, was looked at as, just kind of, I guess what you would say, like the underground fight clubs are today, and what they used to be, and what they still are. And that's what it was looked like in the common. It's not just the eyes of the common man, but in the eyes of political people, governors, senators. This stuff barely got approved in many states. It recently, MMA just got, regulated in New York probably a couple years ago. And that would have never happened, without people like Shamrock and people like other people that actually gave a shit and just said fuck it and just fought. Not just for their rights to fight, but just fought in general, because that's their fucking job. And the Super Fight Championship was just, UFC didn't really have championships at that time. It was just, one night tournaments. It was just, like just doing it for doing it. And the Super Fight title was supposed to be a main title for UFC at the time. Of course, he was the inaugural champion, but it was something that was interesting. And of course, the longest fight in UFC history for 36 minutes, which will probably never happen again. But since MMA is regulated now the way it is, to where it is like 5-minute rounds for championship fights, and that's the longest it'll even go. Unless you do like some kind of pride rules where they have like an extra round or something. And even those don't get enforced as often. But with Royce Gracie at UFC 5, I mean, keep in mind, when MMA first started, it was the cream of the crop. It was people like Tito Ortiz. It was people like Ken Shamrock. It was people like Royce Gracie. It was people, even as Shamrock's career kind of happened, with people like Randy Couture, people like, well, I would say Matt Hughes later on, but still. Just as far as that, there wasn't really divisions. There wasn't really things at that time. And of course, the UFC Viewer's Choice Award for Prank's hybrid wrestling, or just known as Pancrase. Of course, the King of Pancrase, which was one of their titles at the time, and I think it was just the only thing at that time, which was also, part of a one-night tournament, which he won that tournament as well. And the first ever champion of Pancrase, which would make sense. For Pride Fighting Championships, what we're saying with Pride, a lot of things were different in Japan, especially with the one-night tournaments. Ken, of course, had a Grand Prix final super fight win, which was a one-night tournament, I believe, as well. For the World Mixed Martial Arts Association, their heavyweight title. For Black Belt Magazine, the Full Contact Fighter of the Year. And when we talk about full contact, it depends on the sport. With kickboxing and Muay Thai, would say be different than MMA or boxing full contact or something like that. Basically, full contact, you can hit anywhere, you can do anything anywhere. And of course, the rules vary on the sport, but can't always deserve it. And people don't think about the Wrestling Observer newsletter for doing MMA, but at the time they were. And I guess in 2002, defeated the year of Tito Ortiz, and 2006 defeated the year of Tito Ortiz, which, again, that rivalry was there, and honestly, it was great. I remember when I watched UFC back in the day, it was people like Shamrock, Chuck Liddell, people like Tito Ortiz, people like, Matt Hughes, people, even Rich Franklin kind of comes to mind a little bit. But, people that actually fought and didn't do what they do nowadays. And even, well, I say nowadays, I would think like, say, a GSP, for example, and just fucking lays there for 25 minutes and just does nothing. But thankfully that doesn't happen as often as you would think. But for his wrestling career is a little more better, I would say. For Battle Championship Wrestling, their tag title of Carlos Cannon. For PWI, the most improved wrestler in 1997. Ranked number 8 in PWI 98, and 226 in the PWI Years Edition 2003. For South Atlantic Pro Wrestling, and in this case, South Atlantic, from my recollection, was probably the last dish effort to revive the NWA Mid-Atlantic territory, which didn't obviously happen, but, it was what it was. But for them, he held the heavyweight title and the heavyweight title tournament, which of course won the title in that final in 91. For TNA and Impact Wrestling, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, and at that time, TNA was NWA TNA. And it was their first ever pay-per-view, and people that remember, TNA had weekly pay-per-views instead of actual shows, which I think were like $5 a show, which doesn't sound bad at the time, but you have to think about, they did over 200 of these. So if you and these were weekly. If I remember, these were like fucking weekly pay-per-views. So if you got all the fucking pay-per-views, you would have had maybe, do quick math in my head, maybe like what, $500? Maybe more over the 2 years that you waste on some of these shows. And some of these shows weren't the best, but nonetheless, when he won that title, it was in a gauntlet for the gold, which had many of the NWA's best at the time, because of course TNA was in the NWA at that time and didn't really have a world title like they do today. But it was an interesting time because, tradition was actually looked at as something to be respected, which kind of tells you about nowadays when it doesn't. But nonetheless, and of course the Hall of Fame for this year. For the WWF, their Intercontinental title, their tag title with Big Boss Man, the King of the Ring in 1998, and of course when he won the title, Intercontinental title, was in the tournament in 98. And when I think of Ken Shamrock and WWF, I think, a guy that was just a badass. Just someone that was a loose cannon, something like that Ken could probably never do in MMA, just because of the structure of MMA from wrestling, as at least a comparison, even though some people joke around that the UFC is probably the best wrestling promotion in the world, just based on the people they have like now, like a Conor McGregor, and, just based on their promos and based on what they fucking do now. Excuse me. But, Ken Shamrock at the time was legitimately the world's most dangerous man. And it wasn't just a moniker, it was just he let you know about it because he didn't give a shit. And it just was awesome at the time, and I would rather him being in a WWE Hall of Fame just because of the notoriety he gets with that, but, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because in this day and age, you need something like that. You need a happy moment, especially in these times of need. You need something that makes you look forward to something that might actually happen, with all sports and all events recently, canceled for the, until this fucking virus gets taken care of. And it's something to look forward to, and I'm happy that he's going in this Hall of Fame. It's a long time coming, And hell, why would you not have your first world champion in your Hall of Fame? doesn't make sense not to do it. But, it'll be a great night if it does happen, and hopefully this coronavirus will fucking go away so we can actually enjoy things that we love. Whether it's wrestling, whether it's MMA, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, whether it's whatever. Hopefully this ends soon, and hopefully we can enjoy Bound for Glory, and we can enjoy it as an actual event. People will celebrate it, and it'll be great.